Hi, I'm Than Bennett. Thank you for listening to The Equipped. Faith Radio podcasts are only possible because of your support. Thank you for giving and for sharing with a friend. Fires continue to rage in California. Meanwhile, negotiations for a ceasefire in the war between Israel and Gaza are again on the 5-yard line, even as the bodies of additional hostages are recovered. And finally, maybe the longest headline in the history of The Equipped, it is conviction, discharge, resignation, and inauguration. Those are the 3 headline stories we will turn our attention to in just a moment. Welcome into the broadcast, everyone. I am your host, Than Bennett. So grateful you are here for the conversation. If you are new to this community, I just encourage you to hop on over to theequippednewsletter.com, add your email address, and join our community. We look at headline news each and every week through the lens of the true and the beautiful. And when we get to the beautiful in just a moment, we are going to be talking about morning light and the particular beauty that exists with morning light and what that means for your life. But we are going to start, as we always do, by standing on eternal truth. And this week, the true is going to focus on the core message, the core statement that was delivered by my brother-in-law at his mother's celebration of life this past weekend. And it was simply this: I was watching. I'm going to explain what that should mean in your life right now on The True. I was watching. Those were the central words that were proclaimed by my brother-in-law earlier this week as he was eulogizing his mother. And let me just pause right there and just say I'm just so grateful for the personal nature of this relationship that you and I have in The Equipped. I know for several weeks now you have been hearing themes related to our family's journey through the transition of Mimi from earth to heaven. And this past weekend was sort of the culmination of that process as we gathered to celebrate Mimi's life and to reflect on what she meant and means to us, and the fact that we are celebrating her reunification with her Lord and Savior Jesus Christ in heaven. And I'm grateful for the fact to share my thoughts and perspectives as our family has learned and drawn lessons from this journey. I'm grateful for the chance to interact with several of you who have had similar experiences and who are experiencing different types of challenges in your life. That's why we come together as a community. We live in a tangible world that is full of brokenness, and we need each other to sustain our mantle and our mission to carry the gospel of Jesus Christ into that broken world around us. And none of us is exempt from this type of season of being wounded and broken and grieving, and we need each other to be able to stand and to be able to pursue and to be able to carry on and to advance that mission. And so I'm grateful for each one of you. And by the way, there is a way to interact in a back and forth way. If you want to send an email to theequippednewsletter@gmail.com, I read every email that comes through. And many times it gives me a flavor of what this community is walking through and what we need to be encouraged in. So if you want to share where you are at in that journey or what you're struggling with or what things in our broken world could use some bolstering and some encouraging around, I encourage you to send that note along. Again, it's the equipped newsletter at gmail.com. But our family was gathered this last weekend. We were remembering Mimi, and my brother-in-law was given one of the eulogies. And there were many words that were spoken, many songs and memories that were shared that left a mark on me. But I think it was this phrase that stuck with me the most. He said, I was watching. And he shared how his mom, my mother-in-law, had left him an inheritance that was far more meaningful than money or possessions. My mother-in-law was not a wealthy woman. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were not people of great monetary means, but they were very rich in many other ways. They were, and my brother-in-law was expressing this. He was expressing that when my father-in-law and my mother-in-law had been faithfully prioritizing service to those around him, it had left its mark on him. And it had been a lesson that he had caught more than they had taught him. Certainly there were words and lessons and things that were passed along verbally to him, but it was a lesson that he saw them walk out, and therefore he caught it from them, and it is one that he will continue to lean on for a lifetime. And it is one that, by the way, he continues to lean into. He continues to lead a life that is dedicated to serving those who are less fortunate than him. And it is a lesson that he caught from watching his parents. And as I listened to this and as I thought about what it meant for our community here at The Equipped, two questions came to my mind, and I want to invite you to ask them of yourself and in light of your own life today. I've been reflecting on them in terms of my life, but I want you to ask these questions as they relate to your life. Number one, who are you watching and what do you see in them? And number two, who is watching you and what do they see in you? So number one, first, who are you watching? And, ideally you would be like my brother-in-law who has parents or a parent like my mother-in-law who have modeled a walk with Jesus for you. And if you have that, if you have a parent who has modeled that for you, treasure that. Walk in their example. There are no perfect parents, but if you have a parent that pointed to Jesus, lean on that yielded example and lean on that inheritance. Draw on that. That is a tremendous gift. But if you don't have that parent, I want you to find someone whose life you can watch and who you can draft behind. If you are not currently watching someone like that, find someone to watch and learn from and emulate. I want to really encourage you in this. Decline to be saddled with the mistakes of those who have gone before you. If you don't readily have an example in your life to draft behind, find one. Set your eyes upon that person and learn from them as they follow Jesus. Of course, you're not following that person, you're following Jesus, but it helps to walk alongside someone who is farther down the road than you as they follow Jesus. So find that person. If you don't have that person, find them now and draft behind them. But next, who is watching you? And this is maybe the question that I think will be the most difficult to answer, because there's a good chance you are tempted to say that nobody is watching you. I think many of us assume that nobody is modeling their life after us and after our example. But that assumption is wrong. Someone is watching you. And much like my brother-in-law shared about his mom, someone is watching you. They are learning from you. They're learning either good or bad habits from the way that you comport yourself and the way that you interact with your world. So who is watching you and what do they currently see? And maybe most importantly in this conversation, what can you do today to ensure that whatever it is they see on a consistent basis from your life is something that points them back to Jesus? Something that points them back to the one through whom we are all invited to the Father. That's John 14:6. No one comes to the Father but through Jesus. What in your life will point people to Jesus so that they can have a relationship with the Father? This is an invigorating reality. It is not a burden that we need to, be on our best behavior because people are watching us. This is a liberating reality that one of the main purposes of your life is to build your life on a firm foundation so that those around you can then stand on that foundation and have a relationship with the one true God. I think this is the first and the most effective way that we advance the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Yes, we need to speak it. Yes, we need to witness and we need to proclaim it. But the life you are leading is the first and the most effective way that you can be a witness for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so as we together learn this, as you walk with the humility it takes to choose this path, as you remain teachable, you will then in turn be leading a life that when it comes your time to be eulogized, when it is you that there is a celebration of life being held about, and someone steps up onto that platform to speak about you and to eulogize you, they will say, "I was watching." Who is watching your life and what are they learning from it? I encourage you to continue to ponder that as we turn our attention now to headline news, our leading story of the day this week on The Equipped. Fires continue to rage in California. In the Los Angeles area alone, there are at least 4 major fires that are continuing to threaten thousands and thousands, millions really, of people who are in close proximity to these fires. You have very likely seen the images on your TVs or in your social media feeds. These are some of the most unbelievable images you will ever see in densely populated areas. The fires have already claimed at least 25 people's lives, and thousands of homes have been destroyed. Millions of people continue to be threatened by the fires that have burned more than 60 square miles. The primary efforts around these fires continue to be focused on rescue and containment, but officials are also beginning the process of trying to determine a cause for each of the fires. Obviously, the heavy winds, the high winds are exacerbating the problem. The fires are spreading quickly and are difficult to contain, but they are working to determine a cause for each fire. As we kind of zoom back, as we always do as the Equipped community, to think about how we should interact with a story like this. This is one of those stories, and we deal with these a lot, but it's just a very sobering reminder that everything on this earth, everything of this tangible world, including our life, can be lost in a moment. We have tens of thousands of Californians today that find themselves either without a home or at least temporarily displaced from their home, and millions of Californians remain under the ongoing threat of these fires. And there is just precious little that can be done to prevent against this kind of threat to your physical being or your physical property. And Jesus spoke very specifically in the Sermon on the Mount about how to build a life on a foundation that would withstand this kind of storm from life and these challenges. You can find that in Matthew 7:24 through 27. But the question I want to ask today as a result of this story is, how much of your time and mental energy is spent worrying about things that will pass away? Maybe there are things that have been taken away from so many Californians in the blink of an eye, or maybe there are things that will last until you journey on to eternity. But how much of your time and energy is spent worrying about things that will one day pass away? And I would just admit to you, I would confess to you that if you are like me, the answer is a great deal. I spend an exorbitant amount of time thinking about and dwelling on things that will one day pass away. And so as you are praying for people who have been impacted by these fires, and as you are acting on their behalf, I think there are many ways we can intervene to help those who are in need, either by giving those who are responding to those in need, or maybe by opening up your home to someone who has been, that you know that has had to flee their home. As you are acting out on their behalf, I want you to take inventory of where you can better allocate your time and treasure. Let me close with this thought also from the Sermon on the Mount, a chapter earlier, Matthew 6:19 through 21. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Hi, Faith Radio family. Than Bennett here with a special invitation for you. So much in our world today is screaming for us to be consumed by fear and division and brokenness. But the promise of the gospel means that our foundation is secure. We should live not from a place of fear, but instead our lives should be marked with power and with love and with sound minds. And so every week I'm sending out the Equipped newsletter. Every issue opens with truth from God's Word. From that vantage point of truth, we look at a handful of current events in our world. We do it not to simply consume information, but we do it looking for opportunities for the gospel of Jesus Christ to inject love and healing and redemption into those who need it. We close every issue with a simple reminder of something that is beautiful in our world. I want to invite you to join our community. You can sign up at theequippednewsletter.com. That'll trigger an email back to you. Just click to confirm. Again, it's theequippednewsletter.com. I'll see you there. So my friends, this is a story that none of you are going to like. I kind of have to chuckle to myself. Anytime we discuss a story related to the legal cases surrounding either President-elect Trump or the current president, Joe Biden, I just know there's a discomfort in our community. I can tell it in the responses that I can get. I frankly can tell it in the engagement numbers with the story. But these are the stories that are really important for us to discuss, because even though we approach them and we even walk away from them with differing opinions, stories that divide us are ones that we need to grow our capacity to interact with in a way that continue to point to Jesus Christ. And so we're going to continue to engage them. We're going to have the grit and the intellectual and spiritual tenacity to continue to engage these stories together in a way that honors and reflects the glory of Jesus Christ and advances the gospel in our world. And there was certainly a lot of activity around this story this week. In fact, I kind of laughed to myself as well. I think this is the longest title in the history of The Equipped. The title is Conviction, Discharge, Resignation, and Inauguration. All of that happened around this story in just the last week. I'll just give you a quick summation of it. First of all, New York Justice Juan Merchan in New York issued what is called an unconditional discharge of President-elect Donald Trump's felony conviction. This is the one that related to the falsifying of business records relating to the payments that were made to Stormy Daniels. There's a lot of legal jargon around this, but in effect it means that the president-elect will not incur any penalty for that conviction. That is an outcome that, whether you agree with it or not, was essentially sealed when he was reelected to the White House. The legal protections around the sitting president really cemented the fact that this would be the ruling, that there would be no penalty for that conviction. The second piece of news was that the special counsel Jack Smith, who had been investigating the cases related to the handling of classified information and then also election interference, he completed his report and then resigned as his tasks were finished. And then shortly after his resignation, the third part of this headline is that the Department of Justice released that final report to the public. There were certain portions of it that were sealed for the protection of other people involved, but the 174-page, I believe it was, report was released to the public. If you have interest in that report, it is linked at theequippednewsletter.com. But in a way, all of these events together mark the end of a chapter and sort of set the stage for next week's re-inauguration of the president-elect for his second non-consecutive term in the White House. So why do we even talk about this? Why do we bring up a story if nobody, regardless of their view on the president-elect, enjoys it? If you're for the president, you don't want to revisit some of these cases. If you're opposed to the president, you don't want to deal with the fact that he is being re-inaugurated into the White House. We deal with it precisely for that reason. It is probably the most difficult current event for any of us to view objectively. And that makes it one of the best opportunities to lean into one of our primary goals, which is having a discerning heart and mind, the mind of Jesus Christ about world events. We find that in 2 Timothy 1:7. We are to lead lives marked with power, love, and sound minds. That is most difficult in a story like this. And I think it's fair to say that if you support President-elect Trump, you are probably inclined to dismiss the findings of the court and the special counsel. If you oppose President-elect Trump, you may be disinclined to dismiss the will of the electorate who have just reelected him to a second term. And I think both of those temptations, if walked out, short-circuit our ability to think critically about this story and the many more stories, by the way, that are going to follow that are related to it. And so I want to encourage all of us to take a moment this week to do two things. Number one, I want to invite you to candidly consider the underlying evidence or results of the election, taking particular care to consider the perspective that you are disinclined to share. And I think we see that admonition in Proverbs 18:17 that says, the first to argue his case seems right until someone comes and argues the counterpoint. So let's consider first the perspective of this story that we are disinclined to agree with. And then number two, I want you to fervently consider how you can respond in a way that heals wounds and points toward flourishing. You'll find scriptural rooting for that in Psalm 147:3 and Jeremiah 29:5 through 7. This is going to be very, very different than the vast majority of commentary you will see around this story. Most of that commentary will invite you to be outraged about the shortcomings of, quote, the other side. And I think that will be true regardless if you get that commentary from the right or the left. But I submit to you that a biblical approach, a much healthier approach, is to humbly consider the evidence on all sides and then to walk into the days ahead equipped with that honest understanding of all that has transpired. Finally, closing thought here. I want to remind you and to encourage you to remember, as I am endeavoring to do, that our task of carrying the gospel into our world, into your world for the purpose of flourishing, that is far more important than your opinion or anyone else's opinion about any politician's actions. You serve a God who grants wisdom and knowledge to those who ask for it and those who seek it, even as kings and kingdoms around you rise and fall. So seek wisdom, seek knowledge, ask for wisdom, ask for knowledge, and your God will grant it to you. The bodies of a father and son from Israel, identified as Yosef and Hamza al-Ziyadna, were discovered in tunnels beneath Gaza this week. They were both deceased. They had both been kidnapped alive by Hamas on October 7th, 2023. It is yet another tragic chapter in this story that continues to unfold. Meanwhile, the reports are that the negotiations for a ceasefire and a deal to release the remaining hostages are once again nearing an agreement. Now, this has been the case many times during this story, and there has yet to be an actual final deal that has been honored by both sides all the way through to a ceasefire that remains and a hostage release deal that sticks. And so there is understandable skepticism about whether this final deal that is reportedly close will indeed be agreed to and honored by all sides. The reality, though, is that these attacks that were first carried out on October 7th, 2023, continue to unleash a wave of suffering. There are families experiencing excruciating pain as they wait for their family members to be released or to hear news about them. We, as Jesus followers, are called to pursue peace. We talk about this a lot. We're also called to defend the oppressed. And the reality in this story is that in this conflict, in this war, it's been waging for thousands of years. We need to remain mindful that a true and a lasting peace is only going to be achieved fully in eternity. In the meantime, our mandate is to be both ambassadors of peace and advocates for the persecuted. Let's not grow weary in well-doing. Let's maintain the course. Let's keep the courage. Let's continue to call for these hostages to be released while advocating for a peace that will take hold and provide security for all in the region. Morning Light. It's the title of the image provided by my wife, Brooke, in this week's edition of The Beautiful. I encourage you, if you do not yet get this to your inbox, jump on over to theequippednewsletter.com, click on archives, click on this week's edition, and then, yes, go ahead. Scroll all the way to the bottom. That's what most people do. Scroll to the bottom, start with The Beautiful. But I encourage you to land on The Beautiful as well before you walk back out into our world. We want to posture ourselves in the beauty of the Creator as we return to engage with the world. But there is something particularly beautiful and reinvigorating about morning light. The sun makes yet another new appearance, announces the beginning of a new day, and Proverbs 4:8 likens it to the life of you, a yielded Jesus follower. It says this: "The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day." My friends, the light in your life might be faint at times, but hold on. It is going to grow steadily brighter, and it will reveal the beautiful, completed work of God in you. I'm Than Bennett. This is The Equipped, and I will talk to you again next week. Thank you for listening to this conversation from The Equipped. These conversations are available because of your support. Become a supporter now at myfaithradio.com. And please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes, and share it with friends so together we can stay informed and be equipped to serve.